Russia's new nuclear missile. What lies behind Vladimir Putin's latest test? On October 21, 2025, Russia announced the successful test of a new generation nuclear-capable missile known as the 9M730 Burevestnik, or Storm Petrel. The declaration came directly from President Vladimir Putin, who described the weapon as unique in the world and a milestone in Russian military history. But what truly lies behind this announcement? Is it a genuine technological breakthrough or a calculated political move to reassert Russia's power amid rising global tensions? A project that dates back to 2018. The Burevestnik project isn't entirely new. Putin first unveiled it in 2018 during a televised speech that made international headlines. The presentation featured an animated simulation of missiles flying across the globe, bypassing Western defense systems. At the time, the announcement was met with skepticism and concern. The concept of a nuclear-powered cruise missile sounded like science fiction, and at the same time, dangerously real. The promise was bold: to create a missile with virtually unlimited range, capable of flying for hours or even days and evading any existing missile defense system. In theory, that would give Russia a so-called second strike capability, meaning it could retaliate even after a devastating nuclear attack. The 2025 test, the return of an old ambition. 7 years later, the Kremlin claims it has finally conducted a successful test of the Burevestnik. According to Russia's Chief of General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, the missile traveled roughly 14,000 kilometers and remained in flight for about 15 hours, figures that, if verified, would make it one of the most advanced military systems ever built. The test reportedly took place at a high-security site in the Arctic region. Putin described the results as decisive and ordered preparations to deploy the missile within Russia's strategic forces. For him, this achievement represents a historic step in restoring the global balance of power. What makes the Burevestnik different? The Burevestnik stands apart from traditional cruise missiles due to its nuclear propulsion system. Unlike conventional missiles that rely on chemical fuels, this one supposedly uses a miniaturized nuclear reactor to power its flight. In theory, this design would allow the missile to stay airborne indefinitely, changing routes and altitudes at will. Such flexibility could make it nearly impossible to intercept, as it could fly under radar coverage or approach targets from unexpected directions. Combining virtually unlimited range with unpredictable maneuverability, the Burevestnik could, at least in concept, bypass even the most advanced anti-missile defenses. A project surrounded by risks and secrecy. Despite Moscow's confident tone, many analysts remain skeptical. Independent verification of the test results is non-existent, and Western intelligence agencies are still analyzing satellite data for confirmation. The project's safety record also raises serious concerns. In 2019, an explosion at a Russian testing facility near the White Sea killed several engineers and caused a brief spike in radiation levels. The incident was widely linked to a failed Burevestnik test. Since then, the Kremlin has kept information about the missile highly classified, fueling speculation about persistent technical and environmental risks. The political meaning behind the announcement. The timing of this announcement is no coincidence. Russia remains under intense international pressure due to the ongoing war in Ukraine and the weight of Western sanctions. In that context, showcasing a supposedly unstoppable weapon serves as both a symbol of defiance and a tool of propaganda. For Putin, demonstrating that Russia can still produce cutting-edge technology is a way to reaffirm its status as a global power. The claim of technological superiority doubles as a strategic warning, signaling to the West that Moscow will not be intimidated. Many observers also see the announcement as a direct response to NATO's actions, particularly the strengthening of air defenses in Eastern Europe and continued arms deliveries to Kiev. Through the Burevestnik, Putin appears to be sending a clear message: no defense is impenetrable against Russian innovation. International skepticism. Reactions from the United States and Europe have been cautious. Pentagon sources said there is no independent confirmation of the test, and added that even if it occurred, the reliability of a nuclear-powered engine in sustained flight is highly questionable. Nuclear experts warn that the Burevestnik's concept, while innovative, carries enormous risks. Any malfunction could scatter radioactive material over vast territories, turning the project into not just a military challenge, but also a global environmental hazard. Former U.S. President Donald Trump criticized the test, saying Putin was playing with fire, and urged him to end the war in Ukraine instead of testing weapons of mass destruction. European leaders, meanwhile, adopted a more measured tone, calling for transparency and restraint. Shifting the nuclear balance. If Russia's claims prove accurate, the Burevestnik could reshape the dynamics of nuclear deterrence. For decades, global stability has depended on the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, the idea that neither side would strike first, knowing it would face total annihilation in retaliation. A missile capable of flying globally, evading radar, and delivering a nuclear payload could disrupt that fragile balance. Even if not yet fully operational, the mere existence of such a weapon increases uncertainty and fear, forcing other nations to reconsider their defense strategies. Moreover, this development reignites debates about the collapse of nuclear arms control treaties, many of which were abandoned in recent years. Without verification mechanisms in place, the world risks sliding back into an era of unchecked nuclear competition. Cost, practicality, and propaganda. Critics also question the practical value of the Burevestnik. Building, maintaining, and operating a nuclear-propelled cruise missile would be extraordinarily expensive and complex. Its relatively slow speed and potential instability make it less suitable for real combat scenarios. For that reason, many defense experts believe the missile's true purpose may be symbolic rather than strategic. It reinforces a narrative of technological supremacy and self-reliance that plays well domestically, portraying Russia as a nation capable of outsmarting its adversaries despite sanctions and isolation. In other words, the Burevestnik might be less a weapon of war and more a weapon of influence. An era of renewed uncertainty. The test comes at a time when global alliances and power structures are shifting. As China expands its military reach and the United States strengthens ties with NATO and Indo-Pacific allies, Russia seeks to avoid marginalization through dramatic displays of military capability. Yet such displays also heighten the risk of miscalculation. A single accident or misunderstood maneuver could trigger global panic or escalate into conflict. In a world where nuclear rhetoric is once again on the rise, every missile test becomes a reminder of just how fragile peace is. Conclusion: technology, politics, and power. The test of the Burevestnik missile is more than a technological achievement. It is a geopolitical statement. It demonstrates Russia's determination to challenge the existing order and to remind the world that it remains a major power both militarily and politically. Whether the missile actually works as advertised is still unclear, but even without full proof of success, the political impact is undeniable. Putin's message is unmistakable. Russia will not be sidelined, and its capacity to surprise and to alarm the world is far from diminished. In the end, this test reflects the growing entanglement between science, politics, and global security. As nations race to develop ever more sophisticated weapons, the question is no longer just about who has the most power, but about whether humanity can still control the forces it has unleashed.